You sound like a very well-read person. What are you reading right now? What are you listening to? What can you
Well,
inspire us with?
I would say thank you for the compliment. I do read a lot. Let's see. I haven't read any.
Tom Clancy. Come on, tell me it's Tom Clancy.
I've never really been into fiction that much. I think the last it was a book on some Russian war I read. I don't remember the name of it. It was 2 years ago. But the last dedicated fiction reading I did was The Hunger Games, and this is like 10 years ago. One of my friends, Mike, turned me on to it. I read the whole trilogy when it came out. I was like, whoa! Not the crappy movie that came out in recent years. The books are excellent. What else do I read? The last couple books I read were The Millionaire Minds and The Millionaire Next Door.
I love The
Thomas.
Millionaire Next Door. My father-in-law gave me that when I married my
Okay.
wife. He said, "Here, read that." Oh,
Keep your
okay,
marriage
Dad.
together. Yes, it's a great book, and
Wow.
I've read it like a handful of times because it's useful to just remind yourself of what's in there in terms of like, okay, this is what it says about how a lot of millionaires find their careers and businesses, how they handle common financial issues. So I'm a big fan of those books. I would definitely read the Bible regularly.
Mm.
Different scriptures pop in and out of my head. There's some blogs I read. There's one, the guy's name is first name Robert. Can't remember his last name. Living Stingy is the title of the blog, and I read that periodically. In essence, he's a patent attorney. He started out writing a blog on how he saves money on different things, and then over the years, this morphed into his ruminations on life, uh, some politics, some of the mistakes people make, business. It's a fascinating read. The guy is a voluminous writer, and he's got hundreds of articles. I'm at least a year behind on what he's written. I think the last thing I read from him was in 2021 or so. Although I read it recently, but I like to read them as like they're there, and he's got a huge library of content there. So that's one thing I read. I listen to a lot of Andrew Womack. That's a Christian minister, awmi.net. Shout him out. There's another minister I listen to some of his content. He focuses a lot on relationships and how people relate to each other. His name is Kingsley Okonkwo. He's in Nigeria. Who else? There's probably some other things I can't think of right now, but I,
You're gonna
I
have to
like
give
to
me some of
listen.
those links. I'll put them into the notes of the podcast. Definitely.
Okay.
We'll share those links out with people as well.
Okay.
I'm sure.
I will mark those and remember those.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is I do my own writing as well, like for some of my articles. So I do research. I'm like, what am I thinking about writing about today? So actually, within the next couple of days, I'm going to finish an article that I'm going to put out. Probably we're recording this in early to mid February. I'm going to put out an article the week of Valentine's Day on different things on how people can deal with loss around Valentine's Day. I'm going to do a little personal introspection and throw that in there. So I always read a lot of things related to how people relate to each other and
Mhm.
solving issues in that area. Yeah.
Well, KennyErike.com
Yes.
/blog has all your articles. We'll have a link to that as well.
Yeah. That's my company website. And then it links to my personal blog as well. It's justtaptheglass.com. And I've got hundreds of articles on a bunch.
What a fabulous name. Just Tap the Glass. I love it.
Yeah. How the name came about was it was based on pet care and poker. So in pet care, they say if you have fish, you're not supposed to tap the glass because it's very disturbing to their ears. And in poker, there's a term called fish, which are bad players, people who don't really understand the theory and strategy behind the game. And because there's a lot of luck involved in individual poker hands, there are going to be many times where you lose to someone who played their hand poorly. And rather than get upset at them and shout at them, like, well, how could you play this way? Why do you do that? You're not supposed to do that because it encourages them to not only know the mistakes, but to improve on their mistakes. And that's actually going to make it harder for you to win in the long run. So you're not supposed to let fish know they're being fish. And how the Just Tap the Glass name came about, it was like a play on just investigating your environment and be willing to engage in things that you're not necessarily supposed to do if they're beneficial to you. So that's how that blog name came about. And I've got a bunch of work there. So if you, the Kene Erike, KENEERIKE.com links both to the articles I'm posting on my company website and links to some of the reader favorites from my personal blog.
What are you helping people with? What are you working on?
Well, a couple of things. So I have a particular specialty in neurodiversity. In essence, these are folks who have different cognitive challenges, whether that's ADHD, Asperger's, autism, anything on the spectrum. And I have a number of clients that I help with both being able to identify some of their talents and abilities and to use them in a way that can maximize what they have available to them, as well as get rid of some of the hindrances that are preventing them from fully displaying what they can do. Because the neurodiverse community is very underserved. So I always felt a particular touch to help folks in that area. So I do a lot of work there. That's if people check out my company page, you can see some of the work we offer. And I'm actually releasing an audiobook. I've already finished it, but it's just, I'm going through the machinations of having the distributors put it out on different websites. And that book is going to be based on my first book, No Doesn't Always Mean No. Of course, a title like that needed a subtitle. Strategies for Influencing Behavior and Winning Cooperation. And that was a nod to one of Dale Carnegie's famous books, which is one of my favorites. Essentially, the book is all about understanding how to grow stronger relationships with people around you and how to create plans and actions that encourage people to support what you want to do, as well as create stronger bonds between people. That book came out about 10 years ago. And I had always had it in mind to create an audio version of the book, but I had just forgotten about it. Things just slip through the cracks when you're living life and doing things. And so in November, someone reached out to me. It's like, hey, I'm interested in the book, but you don't have it in audio. I was like, oh, that's right. I meant 2 years ago create an audio version of it. So I was like, let me do that now. So in December, I did the work of creating the audiobook and listened to someone to narrate it. So it's been finished. I'm putting it out there. Probably be widely available, I'm going to say in March, conservatively. Maybe before then, probably March. So that's one thing I'm working on, the audiobook based on the first book. And down the line, I'll have another book coming out on the 7 elements that create strong bonds between people. I haven't come up with a title for it yet. That'll come to me eventually. And there's going to be a section in there on how singles find spouses that feel like they're made just for them. So really going big game hunting there. That's some of the stuff I'm working on.